everyone. Welcome back to the Alumni Association of the Asian Institute of Management Leadership Series, Season 2, Episode 5 of the AAA Awardees Edition. I'm CJ Asena, MBM 1988.
And I'm Paolo Balinas, MBA 2014. And today we have yet another exciting and inspiring episode for you. But before we move on, please don't forget to subscribe to our Facebook and YouTube channel. It's Alumni Association of the Asian Institute of Management.
More to come from our team. So let's get this episode going. From building homes to powering cities, today's guest has helped shape the way millions of Filipinos live. He has grown the company into a leader in housing, mining, energy, and water, driving nation building with both precision and vision.
Yeah, friends and fellow alumni, let us all welcome our 2025 AAA awardee and chairman, president of DMCI Holdings, Isidro Sid Consunji, fellow Asian Institute of Management alumni, graduating from TMP 1980.
Welcome, Mr. Consunji, to the AIM Leadership Podcast Series, the AAA Awardees Edition. Thank you for joining us today. And let's dive into the questions. Let's do a throwback question. Let's start off. What motivated you to study in AIM?
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Well, I met the husband of a friend of mine, Professor Anton Estrada, and I was 2 years out of university, out of UP then, and he asked me, do you intend to go to business school? I said, no. I said, you should. And I asked him why. And he says, if you go to business school, you will learn a lot of new tools and you will not plateau early. What happens is if you don't have these new tools, you'll end up doing the same thing over and over again. You will not discover any new tools. So you will shorten your usefulness as a manager and as a businessman. So I thought about it for a while and I said, okay, might as well try. So I went to school. AIM.
Do you recall any memorable experience while you were in AIM?
Oh, we had, I think, in my mind, an excellent set of professors. Vic Limlingan was very good in corporate finance. Mel Salazar was very good in business policy. June Bernardo was also very good in production planning. Bobby Lim was extremely good in development of enterprise. But most notable of all of them was Father Terry Barcelon. He taught us human behavior in organization, which was something which is not intellectually taxing, but was very relevant as a manager. He taught us to have a theory of the individual, the theory of organization, the theory of society. As a manager, you have to learn to work through people and with people. So that was fundamentally something that was an eye-opener, and I think it was a very important intellectual foundation when you start working as a manager. So I think that was very good.
Yeah, and building on that, trip down memory lane, right? I was listening to your interview in ANC recently, and you shared that when you graduated, you were excited to apply the learnings right away, right? And maybe you can share more about what were the immediate lessons you learned from AIM that you were able to apply as soon as you graduated that contributed to your success in business, right?
As soon as I graduated, I decided to try a few ideas in my father's company, the construction company, and I couldn't get through.
And why is that so?
I think the set of people, the leadership in the construction company, they were all more engineers rather than businessmen.
Okay.
They've been in that business for a long, long time, so their mindset was pretty groomed, I had time, so I decided maybe I'd try my luck somewhere else. So instead of pushing myself, I decided to buy bankrupt logging company, and turn it around, which I did quite successfully until they asked me to go back and work for the construction company when it was about to go belly up in 1981. So I went back there. At that time, when I went back to DMCI, the account receivable was 3 times the equity. So it was a very difficult time. But since they had no choice, I was the only one available to go and persuade the client to pay up. Finally succeeded after a while. So that was the beginning of my acceptance in the construction company.
You had to show them that you learned well in AIM. We noticed, sir, that you have a affinity for turning around companies, facing crisis. What were your key learnings, especially that you went to two black swans? You had the financial crisis in 1997 and you had COVID. What were your key lessons from there?
There were a lot of black swan events in my life, I think.
Many. Okay, please share with us and how you went through it.
The first one probably was when I found out not managing the accounts receivable was really bad. Second one was the assassination of the Senator Aquino.
Right, 1980.
When interest rates went up to 42%. And you have to weather it out because this was the business environment that you have to live with. The third one was the Asian crisis.
That's right.
There was no credit available, not only for our company, but for the whole country. And maybe the last one was the COVID-19.
That's right.
Black swan events. They were all very challenging times.
What got you through these four black swans? What got you through it? What was it in you and your company that got you through the four black swans in your life?
I think the first thing was staying alive,
Okay. Yeah.
So then I found out that liquidity was very important. Cost control and management of liquid assets was very critical. I think it's far more critical than being solvent. The ability to be liquid, access to capital was far more important. And goodwill, I think, is important.
Yeah.
Goodwill.
Building on that, Siege, I'm quite curious, right? So you've experienced multiple black swans, Mr. Consunji. Is that something that you as a leader of DMCI and several companies actually prepare for?
Actually, no. we were caught flat-footed. The first question you ask is, what do I have to do in order to survive? Wala na muna profitability, wala muna
survival.
Survival, yeah.
So we had to make a choice, sell assets, redundant assets, even at a loss, cost control, lay off unnecessary, and simplify operations,
No, I was gonna ask the question, Pao, building. Can you ever prepare for black swans? But we always hear the word future-proof your company. So, Mr. Consunji, can we really prepare for black swans based on your experience?
I really don't know, but in my experience, it all comes from left field. They don't really know. You don't really know. Like, how would you ever? COVID-19 is something that never happened before. The Asian crisis was something that never happened before. A political crisis was something that never happened before.
But going through now, knowing what we know now, and if you had a crystal ball, where do you think the next black swan might happen? There must be some telltale signs.
Most probably the problem with Trump and his tariff is probably another black swan.
Ooh, that's gonna be exciting.
You don't know where it's gonna end. You don't know where it's gonna end.
That's true. And we have 3 more years of that, right, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in all this, what was most important for you? Intelligence quotient, emotional quotient, or adversity quotient?
You cannot make cut and dried.
Okay.
And dried.
Yes.
I think intelligence, you need a little bit above average intelligence. Palagay ko naman, maraming tao meron nun. So maybe the
emotional quotient.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that your work as a manager is interdependent in how you can work with people, how you can convince people to work with you, not only for the money, but for the objective, the better good. And adversity quotient, if your back is against the wall, you just have to make a simple decision. I'm going to stay for as long as I last. And, and many times the solutions are something that you never foresee, but there's always an end to stormy weathers. There's always an end to sunny days as well. So, sabi nga ni Erap, weather lang yan, di ba?
Weather lang yan. Correct.
This too will pass, as they also say.
Correct. And CJ, I have a follow-up question there because CJ asked, a question that we ask all of our interviewer EVs, right? EQ, IQ, and AQ. Mr. Consuni, you've been very successful in business, your career, and whatnot, right? Are there any core competencies or traits that you would say really propelled you to succeed in life?
I think the ability to listen is important. I mean, really listen. Really
Yes.
listen. And to accept that working is really, learning on the job OJT. Karamihan ng takeover namin, di namin alam yung negosyo to begin with. So we have to listen to the people been there, throw ideas around the table, and a position namin is that no one of us is as good as all of us, and when we create an open atmosphere that people can say what they want to say, not being hurt along the way. As a general rule, we end up with better ideas than we started the discussion with.
So it's a culture building. It's an open culture building.
And also, what I got out of that is really active listening, being curious, being willing to learn and understand. And it's a collective effort, right? It's no one is better than the group. I mean, if you work together, exchange ideas, I think the collective effort has more impactful results, right?
But it has to start from the leadership, from the top, to make it an open culture. I think one of the things we also discuss, Mr. Consuni, in this podcast series is we look at 2 points of view, from a baby boomer, which is me, and a millennial, which is Paulo. And maybe, Paulo, at this point, you can go and ask our favorite questions for the younger generation.
Mr. Consuni, me coming from a millennial, right? I'm still building my career, and you've been massively successful. If you were to advise young professionals such as myself, right? What advice would you give people like me to succeed in corporate business life?
I think you have to look for what you really enjoy, what you really enjoy doing. Like, I think, being good at a specialty, being good as a general manager, being good as an active investor manager requires 3 different set of skills, and 3 different set of mindset or attitude. Like, the reason we went into buying bankrupt companies was we felt that the risk was worth the reward, that to turn around underperforming companies, the rewards far outweigh the risk if you are prepared to handle the risk. So how do you analyze the risk, And being a manager says, can you lead people? Can you get people to be on your side of the table, be on your side of the thinking, be part of the solution and be part of the problem, Well, some people like to be specialists. Me personally, I don't like being specialist. Madali naman mag-hire ng resource person. Mahirap mag-hire ng general manager. And some people takot mag-risk, A lot of our people will not mortgage their house in order to go to business. Kami, sanay na kami. Family namin, panay mortgage yung bahay namin until we went IPO, So we were used to taking risks. So I don't know how will that apply to different people. But dapat mahal mo yung ginagawa mo Kasi you cannot remove adversity from work, diba? Sabi nga ang tatay ko the storms will always come. The only thing I can do is help you how to cope with it. Not prevent them from coming, because definitely they will come, storms in life.
I like that. How to cope with it, right? You can't stop bad weather, but it's more how to adapt to it, right? Following up on that question, Mr. Consuni, right? You talked about risk. So being an entrepreneur, how much weight do you put in terms of analytical assessment versus gut feel?
I think it's very hard not to include gut feel. Many business situations, information is inadequate. They cannot quantify all the risks. Like when we took over Maynilad, 70% non-revenue water. The question you had to ask yourself, how come other people were not able to turn it around? What are the competences that are necessary to turn it around? How come Ayala was able to turn it around? How come the other set was not able to turn it around? So we had to analyze what happened and say, tingin natin, kaya natin itong risk na to. Most of it is technical risk. And since we're quite familiar because of our construction program, we said this is an acceptable risk because it's within our competency. So the risk is within your competency, maybe it's acceptable risk. And the rewards are very high. So we said, okay, sama tayo ni Manny, Pagtulungan natin to. Hatiin natin trabaho, inyo finance, amin ang capex and operations until we turn it around.
Maybe last question, Feature.
No
Since we
problem.
talked about risk, I'm sure you've took a lot of risk in your entire business career. Was there any risks in particular that you took that really changed the trajectory of your business?
I think going IPO was the biggest risk.
Why was that so? What was the risk in an IPO for you?
Well, we had a very immature organization when we went IPO.
Okay.
We were not used to the set of governance required by the PSE and the SEC. Our people were not used to the kind of reporting required, the kind of things required. And we were not used to handling large amount of money and making sure it comes back. And actually, the first few years after IPO, we invested almost all the proceeds of the IPO in real estate, in acquiring different companies and so forth. And here comes the Asian crisis. So we were caught flat-footed. We were totally illiquid. We could not pay our bonds, and our stock price was 2% of our IPO price at one point in time, so wow. 98% loss. So,
wow.
So we had to rethink our strategy and say, okay, we have to start all over again and try to gain back. We made a lot of mistakes, in other words.
I have a question on the IPO. Because we have entrepreneurs listening or watching our series, would you recommend IPO as a long-term vision of any business organization with what you know now?
If you want to scale up your business and you're prepared to accept all the growing pains of scaling up the business, then I think IPO is good for everybody. But we have to convince our family that the trajectory of business and the objectives of family are not totally aligned. And that forces a lot of perceptions and a lot of value systems to change, and sometimes that's not very pleasant. Sometimes that's not very pleasant.
Which brings me to an elephant in the room question. What is the family dynamics? Is there a family constitution now that you're given the scale of your operations? Or does everybody have to be in the business? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, when we went IPO, we took a long time, about a year, to get a consensus. But I think that year was important because a lot of issues that did not surface, they assume was there, surface, like what is our hiring policies? What's the role of family and business? Role of professional managers. What happens when family people do not perform well? And you have to get them off the boat. A lot of issues like that come. A lot of them have been resolved. A few of them still have not been resolved, even after 30 years. There's a new generation of people now. We are the second generation. There's a third generation. Right. We used to working with brothers and sisters. Now we're working with nephews and cousins. Right. So we have to tread and look at other family models. So we hired consultants from outside consultants to help us navigate through these uncharted waters, But I think the most important thing, I think, is people understanding that the trajectory of family and the trajectory of peers are not totally aligned and give and take. If you want other people to invest in you, you owe them a certain set of accountability, a set of profitability that is what other people expect, because why would they invest in you if they will not make money with you, And that simple message is not easy to transmit, Dati, atin lahat yan. Ngayon, may kahapon. Diba?
Well, to put it very vividly, yes.
A completely different dynamics if you bring in external parties to invest, right? Different ball game and set of accountabilities. Yeah.
But still on the family, now I have a fascination for business families in this country. And in this case, is it mandatory for the third generation to be in your company?
Actually, no.
Oh, okay.
Actually, no. Actually, what we said to the second generation is we'll give you dividends as second generation, like any other investor.
Right.
It's up to you to fund the ambitions of your children. Don't ask the family, don't ask the business to fund the ambitions. And if they want to work in the business, they have to be qualified. Maybe we'll give them a platform to perform.
Okay.
As a starting point. But if they don't jump high enough, then they have to get off the boat, off the bus.
So do you think a third generation and maybe a fourth generation should work somewhere else before applying to work in your company?
I don't think it's mandatory, but it will help because we have to remove the perception of entitlement.
That's a good one. Yes.
Because there is an assumption that you're an owner, you can actually qualify as a manager. So I keep on telling them there is no qualification to be an owner, but there are qualifications to be a manager. And a lot of people find that very hard to stomach, Depende manager.
What a reality check.
Yeah. You can't play the family card, right? It needs to be competency-based.
I think it's very strict in this particular family. But how do you find working in multi-generational companies now? Like, not only about your family, but you're a baby boomer like me, then you have your Gen Xers, you have your millennials, and now you have your Gen Zs as you're young. How do you now manage all of those generations together?
I think it requires interaction beyond the office.
Okay.
Kasi you're working as family owners, you're working as management, and you have multiple hats. And you have to act as a family member by, giving each one another a lot of care and so forth. That's not necessary and it takes time for people to understand that in different settings, you have different hats. Sometimes people confuse, what kind of hat they're wearing. And hindi mo nagagawa yan sa sinabi mo lang. It's changing people's habits, changing people's worldview, changing people's attitudes. A lot of it happens over dinner tables, over drinking sessions or playing golf or that kind of stuff.
So the softer side of managing. Yeah. So, hindi pa kayo napapagod, doing all this softer side of the business?
It depends how you define work-life balance. To me, work and the other part of the non-work life are two sides of the same coin. You can't, especially working with family. Walang 9 to 5, walang 5 to 9, walang ganun diba? Kabit-kabit lahat yan, diba? So
okay. Paolo, did your other questions?
Yeah, I think he covered a lot, right? Risk-taking, family dynamics. And I think we can move on to our segment, which is yours, more towards the young ones generation.
Yeah, the young and younger. Okay, so Mr. Consuni, I'm a baby boomer. I'm semi-retired. What's your advice for those in my generation who have, are moving on from their corporate life? What's the next adventure based on your experience? But you're still working. What's the next adventure?
I think during my career, I've learned a lot of interesting experiences and things that work, things that did not work. Probably nice to share some of these experiences with other people so they don't repeat a lot of the mistakes we repeated, and maybe they can find a talent for creating value that will be good for the person, good for society. Win-win situations and win-lose situations. I'd like to share that in our country, ang daming pwedeng gawin. There's a lot of challenges involved. And it involves working beyond your company, working with outside people. So, but maybe I'll probably go to agribusiness after I retire. I think 50% of the poor people in the country are in agribusiness and agriculture. And maybe I don't see any reason why some effort can transform the agriculture side of the country. Vietnam has been able to do that. Thailand has been able to do that. Taiwan. I don't see why that cannot be done in our country. So anyway, I have put some effort there anyway.
Yeah, interesting that after you retire, you shared, right? You plan to put up another business, which is agriculture. Talking to the older generation, sometimes they feel that they're too old to start a new business. What do you have to say for those individuals that think that?
I have considered starting. I'm just saying transforming agriculture.
Okay. Okay.
Ayun, from the start, no? And then pwede naman putting the same things together in a different way, you know?
I have two controversial questions to the comments of Mr. Consuni. The first one is, how and why did Vietnam, Thailand outdo us? That's my first controversial question.
Okay. The first, I don't know. I think Thailand, first of all, a lot of Chinese in Thailand. They
Okay.
have Thai names, but ethnically they're Chinese.
Okay.
And I think the Chinese in Thailand have been very, very productive in agriculture. And then that's why Vietnam, I think because they're a communist country, they can say, oh, this town, puro Robusta coffee lang itatanim nyo, ah. So,
Okay.
the whole town is energized just to plant. And it worked. Now, from zero to the second largest coffee exporter in the whole world.
That's right.
And I think they're going to beat us in bananas also. Same thing.
Minor controversial question. Do you think in our lifetime you will see this country progress to the likes of Vietnam and Thailand?
It depends on the kind of leaders we elect. And I think we have to change a little bit of our one time, big time attitude. Maraming Pinoy ang attitude, one time, big time, rather than slow, consistent improvement over a long period of time, you know. Walang gusto magtanim, lahat gusto umani, di ba? Walang
Quick win.
gusto kumita, ballpen lang ang puhunan, di ba?
Laway lang, di ba? Laway lang ang puhunan.
Laway lang, ballpen lang, di ba? I think we have to accept that we want to make a better country by being more productive. Masyado tayo magaling palusutan eh. Di ba? Ay, nakalusot siya na. Galing niya, nakalusot. Di ba?
I like this. This is a fun conversation.
Di ba?
Totoo po yun. Totoo po yun. Okay, balik po tayo sa kumpanya. Another elephant in the room question, succession planning. What are your thoughts on succession planning?
I will nominate somebody who I feel susundin ng iba.
Okay.
I think I have several, maybe 2 dozen third gen, and maybe half a dozen or so are working in the company.
Okay.
They're pretty good managers, you know, and some of them. But who among them will they follow? Who among them can galvanize people to a single purpose? Among them can? That's the question that hasn't been answered yet.
So it's in progress.
Pag nawala na kami, sino susundin nila? And the most difficult problem is stockholder problems.
Correct.
On that, from solving the real business problem or the business challenges, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Capability, right? Correct. Yeah.
I think we can wind down now with our last two questions. And this is another throwback question po. Let's go back to your UP days. You're back to your 21-year-old self in Diliman. Knowing what you know now, what should you tell yourself?
You know, I was not a very good student.
Okay.
I noticed that's a common thread for successful business people.
I know.
Ang attitude ko is, basta pumasa lang, naintindihan ko, okay na sa akin. I was not
survival,
when I was in my last year in UP, I hung out with speech and drama people because most of my classmates are all too much in the engineering side. Nawala na yung general education and so forth. I think it takes time to really know what you really want to do in life. Yung job hopping na yan, I think for people who find it interesting because at 21, hindi mo talaga alam kung ano gusto mong gawin eh. Hindi mo talaga alam, di ba? It's only after a while you find, I like being a manager pala rather than being an engineer. I found out being manager was more financially rewarding. It's much more open-ended. Engineering is too convergent to specialize. So I enjoyed working with people. So I decided to become more a manager than an engineer.
Okay.
Yeah. And maybe a follow-up question on the 20, since like throwback question tayo.
Yes.
Mr. Consuni, is there any point in time, if you were to redo something in your life, is there any point in time that you would redo?
Well, I should have married my old girlfriend.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
I did not expect that, but
I didn't expect that also.
okay.
Right. So
the other thing was, another mistake you make is that you did not optimize your decision process because you did not look at the whole elephant. You're too focused on what you do every day. You forgot about the dynamics of the industry. You were just too focused on optimizing your company rather than understanding how can you scale up and look at things in a different way. And I think the lack of bouncing board about exploring ideas, especially when you have the ability to allocate resources. I think it's important to generate options and really think about it deeply rather than saying, punta tayo dyan dahil profitable yan, di ba?
And maybe you've done a lot of accomplishments in your entire life, business, career, personal, family. If you were to leave one legacy behind, right? What legacy would you want to be remembered for?
I think when you work as a manager, learn to work that you make a difference in people's lives, di ba? Rather than just saying, I like the book of Matsusita, Not for Bread Alone, you know.
okay.
So ang emphasis niya is serve your customer first, serve your employees second, serve your suppliers and your bankers third, and serve yourself last. And even with that theory, he became the richest man in Japan by serving himself last. So, saving sila eh. When you bring people to a party, a business party, make sure everybody eats, you know.
Right.
That's a great analogy. Serve the people first, right? Before you
people
serve
first.
yourself last. Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So that concludes another engaging, very revealing, and very fun conversation. Thank you very much, Mr. Consuni, for joining us today. And we hope to see you around in the city as we go around and hopefully in AIM2. So again, ladies and gentlemen, our guest today.
One last message that Mr. Sid would share to our audience, right?
Yes, Mr.
Especially those that listen in, who look at you as a source of inspiration. Any last words you'd like to share?
Well, success is not absolute. Diba? Depends what you start with. So today, you have bigger resources. You have to define success in the future differently. Diba? You have to define it on what are the needs of society. How can you make a good difference? How make a difference in people's lives? Diba? Para sustainable. Diba?
Again, we go back to making a difference, right, in people's lives.
Right.
Thank you. So, thank you, Mr. Consuni. And
thank you very much.
Salamat po. And ladies and gentlemen, that is Mr. Isidro Sid Consuni, Chairman and President of DMCI Holdings, TMP 1980, and our 2025 AAA awardee. And again, maraming salamat po, Mr. Consuni, for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye.
So this is CJ Hasena, MBM 1988.
And Paolo Balina, MBA 2014. Thank you once again, everyone, for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe our YouTube and Facebook channel, Alumni Association of AIM, on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you and have a great day.
And we'll see you in our next episode. Thank you.